statistical update, 7:51 p.m., Wednesday, July 16th, 2025. Mark Kulak, Houstonic.live, and we're just going to review the provisional drug overdose death counts, the charts out of the United States CDC, Centers for Disease Control, from their government website. I would never say that any one particular source with respect to this data is the absolute truth. It's possible that there's certain levels of dishonesty or fudging all around either way. However, though, I did multiple videos in 2020, 21, and 22 where I had substantial anecdotal evidence that the number of fatal drug overdoses in the United States was significantly higher for those years. And the people that I spend time with right now are many people who are in long-term recovery or parents who have also lost children. Because, our adult son died in 2022, we no longer have the daily exposure to the sober living facilities that we once did, where we could get some anecdotal data, a sense of how things were, which of course may not be representative of the entire country, but usually it gives you a feel for just how many lethal street drugs are out there at a particular time and what the current risks are, of course, aside from what the mainstream and then the even more deceptive counter mainstream would say. If you go to cdc.gov, NCHS, that's the National Center for Health Statistics, provisional drug overdose death counts. And I think I'm just going to spend most of my time just looking at this chart here. This is the 12-month ending provisional number and percent change of drug overdose deaths. So this chart here, if you zoom in a little bit, what it does is it charts out each month what the 12-month number would be from that month and the prior 11 months of the total number of drug overdose deaths over a 12-month period. So, for example, in January 2016, based upon the numbers prior, they were looking at 52,114 fatal drug overdoses over a 12-month period, which means that about 4,500, 5,000 people were dying a month in the United States of America of a drug overdose. That's all different types of drug overdoses. It does not count a medical accident in a hospital where medicine may have been administered improperly. There is some gray areas regarding suicides, of course, but generally speaking, yeah, that's the number. Now, keep in mind that the number of fatal drug overdoses in the United States of America in the year 1999 was under 20,000. And for the year 2000, I think it was still just under 20,000. So this number of fatal drug overdoses over the 12-month period, 2015 to 2016, is actually 2.5 times what I would consider to be the baseline. This is where a lot of the horrible people that suggest that they are analysts, people like an Ed Dowd, who are trying to help people understand the data regarding deaths over the last year. And a lot of the horrible doctors, such as a Pierre Corey or Jessica Rose, etc., they will also participate in this, where they will say that the numbers in a particular year weren't that much higher than the previous year. But if you already have a drug epidemic in 2016, and it already was considered a drug epidemic, there's already movies, it's already known. It was in 2016, it was the drug epidemic that led me to wanting to do online research in the first place. So that was already a drug epidemic. So that's not now the new baseline. Sorry, that's not the new baseline. The baseline is still 20,000 a year as far as I'm concerned. And that's still too many. We should actually aspire for much lower than that. But that is the baseline of 1999-2000, which was already considered to be bad enough to make Hollywood movies about, to highlight how horrible it was. Now, throughout the Trump administration, 16, 17, 18, 19, you could see that the numbers were going up. The Trump presidency started in January 2017. So during the Trump presidency, the first Trump presidency, as you can see here, the number of fatal drug overdoses did not go up. They went down slightly. However, going down slightly to a number which is still in near record territory is nothing to brag about. However, it has been suggested that there was no drug epidemic by some people, and then Trump made it a lot worse or something like that. I don't know. The truth is that it got to this new record level of 60,000 to 70,000. 70,000 deaths in 2017 and 18. Now, I'm also compelled to do this video tonight because through a network of people that my family is connected with, we just learned yesterday that there's 2 additional families here in Massachusetts that just lost a second child to a drug overdose within the last 4 days. One of them was age, I think, 31. I don't know the age of the other child. The one that was age 31, that family lost their other child when he was in his 20s. So I don't know these families personally, but there's still families here that are losing multiple children. There's one person in the network here in Massachusetts that has lost 4 children to a drug overdose. If I may add this here, how many people know someone that has been raped or eaten by Jeffrey Epstein? Because I will bet you don't know anybody personally, whereas I know dozens of people. Dozens. I could probably know, maybe not that well, but at least 100 families that have lost at least one person and several families that have lost at least 2 people. Therefore, this is why I have such vitriol and anger towards this consumption of all of the time with Jeffrey Epstein. Matter of fact, the consumption of time with Jeffrey Epstein is exactly how this drug epidemic is happening. Because it can't get attention. It can never get to the top of the list. So the people that are driving Epstein to the top are actually, in part, enabling death, prostitution, children to lose parents very young, and so on and so forth. They are doing that. They make that happen because they misprioritize things. So I'm particularly prickly about this tonight, knowing that there's still families losing additional children, adult albeit. But when children are lost, or anyone is lost as a teenager, in their 20s or in their 30s, these are considered to be exceptionally young deaths relative to the average age of death. People, when they die in their teens and 20s or 30s, those deaths have a serious impact on life expectancy. Life expectancy is a very simple calculation. I've seen some citizen journalists try to say that it isn't what they think it is, but it is this simple. It is the average age of people that have died over a 12-year period. You add up the ages of all the people that died over a year. You divide by the number of people that died. That's it. That is why it can be very volatile. So, with a nation with 3 million people dying a year, give or take, we should not be in a situation where 1 out of every 30 deaths, if the total number of drug overdose deaths per year is 100,000, is someone in their teens, 20s, or 30s of a fatal drug overdose. That has a dramatic impact on lowering life expectancy for those years. Open up a spreadsheet. Do the math. You'll be shocked how serious of a drag that has on life expectancy. Not many people at 70 or above are dying of accidental fentanyl overdoses. So, not to mention, when it comes to drug addiction, the number one cause of crime is actually also drug addiction. How many people holding up a liquor store need money for drugs? Most. Almost no one decides to do that as a professional occupation. It's usually as a last resort. What I wanted to show here is that, zooming out a little bit, you can see starting in the year January 2020, a serious surge in the total number of monthly drug overdose deaths. And again, these are mostly young people. And in fact, we were working at a rate of close to 120,000 fatal drug overdoses a year. That is 6 times the baseline. So we went from a record to almost actually in excess of that, doubling it. Now take as I've shown the exhibits, the New York Times and CNN, even Anthony Fauci have made statements in 2019 that the drug epidemic at that time, when there were 65 or 68,000 fatal drug overdoses, was the number one reason why life expectancy was decreasing. Now, if you take that number and add to it significantly, it's going to have an even greater impact on life expectancy drops. It's very simple. How could everyone miss this signal? How can you miss a signal of fatal drug overdoses almost doubling over a 4-year period, which is considered to be COVID, and now going back down? Now, going down to near record levels, to previous record levels of 2017, is still catastrophic. As I just said, knowing of 2 more families that have lost a second child just in the last 4 days. These are not good times. But the entire medical freedom movement, matter of fact, the Children's Health Defense has missed this. One could say that Children's Health Defense wants to focus on environmental toxins, and fentanyl may not be considered one, and addiction may not be part of it. Maybe they want to draw the line as teenagers are too old to be considered children. Fair enough. However, I would say that the health of children is improved if their parents are alive. I would also say that this decrease of life expectancy due to drug overdoses was used to suggest we had a deadly novel virus from a lab or a cave. And that was a big part of making the justification for using the experimental gene therapy vaccines in the first place, the transfections. They would not have been used if life expectancy was going up. Not to mention, as they called flu deaths, which were happening a certain number every year anyways, COVID deaths, that is a victimless crime. That doesn't kill anyone. Calling flu COVID doesn't kill anybody. Calling flu COVID is not a crime. And in fact, calling flu COVID doesn't increase overall deaths. But when you call flu COVID and you have an additional 1 or 200,000 deaths coming in from behind, backfilling the missing flu deaths, and in addition to that, dragging down life expectancy, now you have a situation where the drug epidemic possibly was allowed to go unaddressed to create the deadly novel virus narrative. We had a nation which potentially allowed a drug epidemic to happen, to kill several 100,000 people, to create the narrative. And we still have people online taking money to lie about why people die. Still. As a matter of fact, what do we have, that whole Children's Health Defense group in Washington, D.C. right now? People from other countries representing me, not actually talking about why people are dying in my own country. It is really disgusting where we are. But I wanted to highlight that, as I've expected, the number was going to be going down. It's still going down to near record levels beforehand. However, what will happen now is life expectancy will tick up because of this. And the people who are paid money to lie about why people die will point to that and say it was the bad mRNA vaccines. They were rushed, U.S. military bad, U.S. bad, Trump bad, whatever, Fauci bad, lab leak, etc., etc., etc. They're going to say it. I don't know what I can do other than to inform you and other than to continue to give all I got to do this. Your help would be appreciated. I'm self-funded. Anything you can do to help offset the costs. It has been extraordinarily expensive to participate in this endeavor and to lose out on my career as part of it, not to mention the personal losses. Houstonic.live, HoustonicITS.org. I have a Patreon, PayPal, and P.O. Box 505, Southborough, Massachusetts. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you for listening. Take care, and God bless.